is Driving Opportunity, your company's real estate, presented by CFO Intelligence with your host, Andrew Zezas. Expert guidance for CFOs on corporate real estate planning, portfolio optimization, global transactions, driving efficiencies and cost reduction, and more. And now, here's your host, Andrew Zezas.
Hello and welcome to Driving Opportunity, your company's real estate, where we bring to middle market and enterprise company CFOs the insights and strategies to deploy their company's real estate to achieve increased operating efficiencies and flexibility and drive greater corporate profits. I'm your host, Andrew Zezas. Thanks for joining me. During each show, I'll share one idea, thought, or focus as part of an overall discussion about driving opportunity in your company's real estate. Today, I'll talk about how seeking too much flexibility when negotiating leases can backfire and drive your company's real estate costs higher, and how early termination rights can affect a tenant's value and its ability to achieve overall business objectives. Operating flexibility is crucial to successfully running a business. We all know that. Being unhampered by external factors is very important, especially with issues that are important but secondary to the core business, like facility leases. Now, in the current environment, longer-term facility leases offer occupants greater rent stability, control, and certainty. Because many landlords prefer longer-term leases, they're also typically accompanied by greater financial benefits for occupants, including lower rents, more free rent, larger landlord allowances, and other rights and benefits. But longer lease terms don't necessarily provide occupants with more flexibility. And in most cases, longer lease terms provide less flexibility. The certainty side of longer-term leases from the landlord's perspective is one of the key factors in most landlords' willingness to provide occupants with greater financial benefits. So when attempting to secure greater financial benefit by negotiating longer-term leases, many occupants will seek to also secure flexibility by negotiating for the right to terminate their leases early. Well, that makes sense, right? If an occupant can secure both the greater financial benefits of longer-term leases and the flexibility they need to support operating objectives, then why not negotiate for both? Well, flexibility comes with a cost. Interestingly, risk and flexibility share some similar characteristics. Neither one comes out of thin air, and neither simply goes away. Like risk, flexibility only moves from one transactional opponent to the other. So when an occupant seeks to secure greater flexibility by virtue of an early termination right in a facility lease, that right minimizes certain benefits on the part of the landlord, with increased risk then shifting to the landlord. In this case, the risk is that the occupant will not live out the entire lease term and will exercise the early termination right. That minimizes long-term certainty as viewed by the landlord. It obviously also affects the landlord's ROI, which is important to understand. It actually causes the landlord to view the long-term lease on a risk-adjusted basis and assume that the truly guaranteed lease term would only include the non-cancelable portion of the term, the time up to the effective date of the occupant's early termination right. Now, commercial landlords are not in the business of taking on more risk, and certainly not taking on risks created by others. So what happens? Well, irrespective of the length of a lease, when that lease contains an early termination right, the landlord will assume that the real term is only the non-cancelable term that would occur before the early termination date. And moreover, lenders can be expected to weigh in on the entirety of the lease term, especially the financial terms of the longer lease term versus that of one that contains early termination rights. If the financial or other terms don't meet the lender's criteria, then the lender may not approve the transaction and the landlord could be restricted from completing it. The implications are usually costly to the occupant in that the landlord would more likely offer financial terms commensurate not with the longer term, but with the shorter non-cancelable term when early termination rights come into play. And early termination rights, when exercised, most often require payments by occupants of the landlord's unamortized transaction costs, lost profits, and other costs. Such payments could be significant and are irreversible. There are some interesting approaches as to how occupants can mitigate the risks and costs of early termination. And actually, there are alternatives to achieving flexibility in facility leases other than early termination rights. So while operating and accompanying facility flexibility are key, achieving that flexibility can be costly and should be carefully analyzed for cost and risk in advance of any facility negotiation. I hope these insights will be of help to you in planning for your company's future. If you'd like to learn more, email me at andrew.zezas@cfointel.com. Tune in next week when I'll share more ideas on how to drive opportunity in your company's real estate. Thanks for watching. I'm Andrew Zezas for CFO Intelligence and for driving opportunity in your company's real estate. Have a great week.
Thanks for joining us on Driving Opportunity, Your Company's Real Estate, presented by CFO Intelligence with your host, Andrew Zezas. If you have questions about how best to optimize your company's real estate, email Andrew at andrew.zezas@cfointell.com. If how you serve your company and your career would be enhanced by connecting with peer CFOs from around the country, visit CFOintel.com to explore the benefits of becoming a CFO Intelligence member. While you are there, subscribe to CFO Intelligence magazine, take the CFO Business Sentiment Survey, arrange to attend exclusive CFO events, and explore our other CFO-focused podcast series, CFOs in Motion and CFO Career Accelerator. That website again is CFOintel.com, CFOINTELL.com. Remember to subscribe to this podcast series on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. This has been Driving Opportunity, Your Company's Real Estate, presented by CFO Intelligence with your host, Andrew Zezas. We'll see you next time. The opinions and views presented on this podcast by Andrew Zezas are his own and may not be relied upon as fact. The opinions and views of others who appear on this show are their own as well and may not be relied upon as fact or for any other purpose. Opinions and views and other information are provided for general information and educational purposes only.